Have you ever wondered if the traditions we cherish, the rituals we eagerly perform each year, truly carry the meaning we believe they do? I used to think I understood, but an event completely transformed my perception. Sit down, take some time to listen, and if this story resonates with you, leave a comment to share your thoughts. I believe that no matter where you are, we can connect through stories like this one. My name is Emily Rose, 34 years old, living in a peaceful town near Seattle, Washington. I work at a charity center where I help the homeless, supporting them in finding hope in life. I live alone in a small apartment. On most days, I spend my time working at the center, reading books, or wandering around cafes near my home. I love my simple life, but sometimes I feel lonely, as if there's an emptiness that cannot be filled. I grew up in a Catholic family. From a young age, I was taught that God is always with us, guiding and protecting us. But like many other adults, as life got busier, I gradually tucked that faith away into a small corner of my mind, only remembering God during the hardest times. I wasn't someone who attended church regularly or prayed daily, but I still believed He existed. To me, God was like a silent friend, not too close, but always there when I needed Him. And then, on New Year's Eve last year, everything changed. An event not only gave me answers, but also revealed a truth that made me rethink everything I thought I knew. That evening, I attended a small party at my best friend Rachel's house. As I stepped in, it was like any other intimate gathering, warm and cozy. The soft golden light from the ceiling lamps created a welcoming ambiance. The sound of laughter filled the air, blending with the gentle jazz melodies playing from a speaker in the corner. In the middle of the room stood a long table covered with a cream-colored tablecloth, adorned with a variety of enticing dishes: salads, cheeses, cold cuts, and a chocolate-covered cake. Outside, through the large window, I could see the city under the night sky, its streetlights flowing like golden rivers. The cold winter breeze crept through the window frame, making me shiver slightly. Everyone was cheerful, engaging in lively conversations, recounting old stories, and laughing endlessly. Rachel, as always, was the heart of every conversation, making everyone feel comfortable. For no apparent reason, I felt out of place among the crowd. Each time someone asked me something or raised their glass for a toast, I tried to smile, but that feeling wouldn't go away. An inexplicable unease weighed heavily on my heart, as if something was waiting to happen. When Rachel invited me to dance with everyone, I politely declined, convincing myself I just needed a moment of solitude to feel more at ease. I grabbed a glass of wine and stepped out onto the balcony, where the chilly air instantly wrapped around me. Standing on the balcony, I looked down at the city below. The streetlights sparkled and fireworks boomed faintly in the distance, even though it wasn't midnight yet. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but just as I placed my hand on the railing, a sharp, sudden pain struck me. At first, it felt like a tightness in my chest, but it quickly escalated to something much more severe. I struggled to breathe, but every breath seemed to be cut short. My hand gripped the railing tightly, trembling. The pain radiated to my shoulder and down my left arm, as if an invisible hand were squeezing my heart. My breathing became shallow and rapid, each breath insufficient to calm my body. A chill ran down my spine, and my limbs began to lose sensation. My vision blurred, the city's golden lights in the distance now reduced to indistinct shimmering dots. My heart pounded erratically, and I felt my body slipping out of control. I tried to scream for help, but my voice caught in my throat. The pain became unbearable. In the final moments before everything faded into darkness, I felt an immense weight lift off my shoulders, as though I had crossed a boundary I had never known existed. When I collapsed on the balcony floor, everything around me seemed to pause. The noise of the party stretched and softened, fading into the distance. The stabbing pain in my chest began to disappear, not because I had recovered, but because my body was no longer mine. I felt myself floating, as light as a leaf carried by the wind, no longer bound by gravity. Looking down, I saw my own body lying motionless on the balcony. I knew it was me, but the connection to my physical form was entirely severed. A gentle, warm glow began to envelop me, washing away all pain and fear. This light was not from the sun or any man-made source. It was soft, but encompassing, like being cradled in an invisible embrace. I felt myself being carried away, moving through an infinite void. Step by step, the light grew clearer, guiding me to a place I had never imagined. When I opened my eyes, I found myself standing in a space unlike anything on earth. Everything around me was light. There was no ground or sky, yet I felt solidly anchored. The pure white light was warm and soothing, not blinding, as if it emanated from the air itself. This place was silent, yet not eerily so. Instead, I felt a gentle rhythm, like the heartbeat of my own soul. There was no wind, but I sensed a delicate movement of energy around me, as if inviting me to venture further. I looked ahead, and in the distance, a more radiant light began to appear. This light was not just a source, it was an entity. I sensed it as a presence, immensely powerful, yet profoundly tender. I moved closer, and as the radiant light engulfed me, I knew he was there. It was God. I didn't need to see his face to know. His presence was so overwhelming that every part of my soul recognized him. The light emanating from him didn't just surround me, it reached into the deepest parts of my soul, as if healing me from within. Fear, anxiety, and all negative emotions were swept away. I felt an unconditional love, a love that transcended human understanding. When he began to speak, his voice didn't come from one direction, but resonated throughout the space, as if it was part of the light itself. Emily, you are not here to be judged. You have been brought here to see and understand because the world you know is straying from the truth. His words were both powerful and gentle, like waves softly touching my heart. I couldn't speak, couldn't question or protest. All I could do was listen, for every word he spoke reached the very core of my being. Before I could say anything, God spoke. Emily, I know you have many questions. You have lived in a world filled with traditions and rituals you believe are harmless, but you do not realize that they have obscured the true meaning of the time I have given humanity. Time is a gift I have given to humanity, God said, but it is not merely numbers or a calendar. I have designated sacred times, holy days meant for people to connect with me. These days are not burdens, but reminders of my love, of my plan of salvation, and of eternal life. He continued, the light around him gently pulsating, emphasizing his every word. But humanity has altered what I have given. Instead of preserving my holy days, they have replaced them with traditions of their own making, traditions rooted in forces that do not belong to me. These entities have used time to distort its divine purpose. Emily, let me show you. The light around me faded, and I found myself standing in a large square in ancient Babylon. Before me was a scene teeming with activity, yet tinged with an unsettling air. Towering brick walls surrounded the square, adorned with intricate carvings of deities I did not recognize. Crowds gathered densely, hundreds of people wearing long robes made of coarse linen, their colors muted but decorated with geometric patterns. Drums beat steadily, a slow rhythm that seemed to carry an invisible weight, blending with the chants of prayers in an ancient language I could not understand. In the center of the square stood a massive altar, and upon it was a golden statue of the god Marduk. At the base of the altar, priests in dark robes prepared a large bull for a sacrificial ritual. The tension in the air was palpable, as though the crowd awaited something dreadful yet unavoidable. God stood beside me, his light acting as a shield, protecting me from the oppressive atmosphere. He pointed toward the crowd and said, "Do you see, Emily? They believe that shedding blood pleases their gods, but they do not know that behind these idols are dark forces, entities that have exploited humanity's fear and ignorance to claim worship that does not belong to me." As the bull was slaughtered, its blood spilled onto the altar. The crowd roared with applause, but amidst the clamor, I heard something else, a low, guttural sound like laughter emanating from unseen beings. I shivered. "What is that, Lord?" I asked. God did not answer immediately. He simply said, "They do not know that their actions open doors for darkness to enter their world." The scene shifted. I found myself standing on the banks of the Nile under a starlit sky. High above, the star Sirius shone brilliantly, like a giant diamond suspended in the heavens. The people of Egypt knelt along the riverbank, their eyes fixed on the star, their expressions filled with awe and reverence. Priests in white robes, their heads adorned with golden headdresses, moved solemnly through the crowd. They carried incense burners emitting curling wisps of smoke, chanting hymns as they walked. Behind them was a stone altar where offerings, fruits, bread, and other precious items were meticulously arranged. God explained, "They believe that Sirius heralds the Nile's flood season, bringing water to their fields and life to their villages. But instead of worshiping me, the creator of the stars, they place their trust in the creation itself." I looked into the faces of the worshippers, and my heart ached. "Do they know the truth, Lord?" I asked. He shook his head. "They do not know. They are led by their priests, who have used the stars as tools to control their faith. The stars have no power, but dark forces have used them to blind humanity." A cold breeze swept through, carrying with it eerie whispers. I turned, and in the shadows, I caught glimpses of smoky figures writhing, moving among the crowd. I felt their presence acutely and stepped closer to God's light for protection. The scene shifted again to a bustling Roman city, where stone-paved streets led to a grand square. This was Rome during the height of its empire. Ornate temples were adorned with garlands, and the streets were filled with people celebrating the new year. I saw families exchanging small gifts, street vendors calling out, and crowds laughing as they played games. The atmosphere was jubilant, yet I sensed an underlying hollowness. God pointed to a large temple where a long line of people waited before the statue of Janus, the two-faced god. They prayed for a prosperous new year, believing Janus had the power to open the gates to the future. "Do you see?" God said. "They think these prayers are harmless, but they are not directed to me. Over generations, humanity has transferred the authority of time to entities that do not belong to the light." I looked deeper, and in the shadows of the crowd, I recognized familiar dark forms. They whispered into the ears of the worshippers, urging them to make vows and offer sacrifices. A chill ran down my spine. "Lord," I asked, "do these ancient customs have any connection to the present? These events happened so long ago. Surely they have vanished." God answered solemnly, "Do you think they have vanished? No, they have merely changed their form. Today, people no longer worship Janus, but they still raise their glasses to toast a new year without understanding its true meaning. They no longer pray to Marduk or bow to Sirius, but they seek hope in meaningless predictions." The scene shifted once more, and I found myself in a bustling modern city. The night was dark, but the neon lights of billboards and storefronts lit up the streets like daylight. Crowds of people moved along the sidewalks, laughing and chatting in glittering outfits. From a nearby bar, I heard loud music, an electronic beat mixed with the sound of laughter and cheers. Groups of friends gathered on the pavement, holding glasses of beer or wine, raising them in celebration of the approaching new year. In the distance, fireworks burst in the sky, painting the city with brilliant colors. But as I looked closer, the image of joy began to distort. Among the fireworks, I heard distant cries and the wail of ambulance sirens cutting through the festivities. Faces that had been smiling moments earlier blurred, and I saw a family arguing on the sidewalk, a father shouting while children cried. In another corner, a young man collapsed from drinking too much, his friends panicking as they tried to help. God stood beside me, his light separating me from the chaos. "Emily," he said, "do you think this is joy? Look more closely to see the truth." I scanned the scene again, and this time I saw what I hadn't before. Among the crowd, shadows moved, strange, indistinct figures swirling like black smoke. They didn't walk on the ground, but drifted, surrounding people drinking, laughing, or arguing. I saw one entity whispering into the ear of a young woman in a bar. Moments later, she began mocking her friend, and their light-hearted conversation turned into a heated argument. Harsh words flew, cutting deeper than knives. Another shadow loomed beside a couple taking a photo of the fireworks. It whispered into the man's ear, and I saw his face shift from joy to irritation. Within seconds, they were quarreling, and the woman turned away, tears streaming down her face. I looked down another crowded street where strangers jostled each other for space to view the fireworks. I saw the shadows push people into one another, turning minor collisions into glares and angry words. "Who are they, Lord?" I asked, my voice trembling. God answered, his voice resonating deeply. "These are dark entities. They are not mere spectators, but active instigators. They exploit human weaknesses, stirring negative emotions and sowing seeds of discord." My heart grew heavy as I witnessed this. "Lord," I asked, "is there any hope? Can they change? These behaviors seem deeply ingrained." He turned to me, his eyes filled with compassion. "Emily, there is always hope. I never abandon humanity. They can change if they hear the truth and return to me. But you must tell them. You must help them see that what they think is harmless is actually pulling them away from the light." He continued, his light shining even brighter as if to affirm his words. "Tell them I do not judge them for what they do not know. I only want them to open their eyes and see the truth. Tell them that the holy days I have given are not burdens, but invitations to live in the light and receive the blessings I have prepared for them." I looked back at the crowd, and for the first time I saw not just the darkness, but glimmers of hope. I saw a father kneel to apologize to his children after an argument. I saw a group of young friends set their drinks aside, laughing together without needing more alcohol. I saw a couple holding hands, quietly praying under the glow of the fireworks. "Do you see, Emily?" God said. "Light always exists, even in the darkness. You just need to show them how to find it." He placed his hand on my shoulder, and I felt his strength flowing into me, washing away all my fears. "Emily, you do not need to change the entire world. That is my work. Your task is to speak the truth, to plant the seeds." He paused, his gaze full of hope. "Emily, you do not need to be perfect, and you are never alone. I am always with you." I didn't know where I found the courage, but I replied, "I will do it, Lord. I will tell them what you have shown me, but will anyone listen to me?" God smiled again, and I felt comfort in his radiant light. "Emily, those who have ears will hear, and those who thirst for the truth will seek you. Just do what I have asked, and I will take care of the rest." The brilliant light surrounding me slowly dimmed, as though I was being gently pulled back from a dream. My body began to feel the weight of gravity again, but it wasn't comforting. Instead, I felt heavy, as if covered by chains after experiencing the ultimate freedom. When I opened my eyes, the artificial light from a hospital room ceiling made me squint. The rhythmic beeping of machines echoed in my ears. The room smelled sterile, a familiar scent of antiseptic. I realized I was lying on a hospital bed, wires and tubes attached to my body. My heart was beating, but each thump felt slower, heavier. A nurse entered the room, her face a mixture of relief and concern. "Emily, you're awake. We were afraid you wouldn't make it after your heart attack last night." I offered her a faint smile, but inside, my soul was brimming with light. Though my body felt weak and sore, I knew I had been illuminated, that I had just experienced the most miraculous moment of my life. As I lay on the hospital bed, the vivid images of my encounter with God remained etched in my mind as though they had happened just moments ago. His words echoed in my heart. "Tell them they can change. They can return to me." Despite my physical weakness, I felt a new energy within me, as though God had placed a divine mission in my heart, a strength that rose above fear and doubt. "I have to do this," I whispered to myself. "I cannot remain silent. People need to know the truth." From that moment on, my resolve burned like an ember, ready to ignite into a blazing fire. I was no longer the same Emily, the one who drifted through life, unsure of her purpose. I had been empowered, entrusted with a mission that nothing could deter. When I left the hospital, my life changed completely. In the beginning, I started with the smallest changes. Each morning, I set aside time to pray, not just to thank God, but also to listen to His guidance. I learned to place absolute trust in Him instead of worrying about things beyond my control. I no longer saw holidays like New Year's Eve or other traditions as mere routine. Instead, I began studying the Bible, delving into the holy days God had ordained. I started holding small gatherings at home, inviting friends to learn about the true meaning of time and sacred observances. In my work, I became more sensitive to the needs of those around me. I didn't just provide food or shelter for the homeless, I also sought to offer them hope for a better future in God. Quietly, I shared with them that everyone can change, that light always exists if only they open their hearts to it. On social media, I began sharing my story through short videos. At first, I feared no one would care, but gradually, comments, questions, and stories from those who watched made me realize that the mission God had given me was spreading. Every day, I felt God's presence more profoundly in my life. I no longer looked at things with indifference or apathy, but always asked myself, "Does this please God?" Every decision, no matter how small, was now guided by the truth He had revealed to me. People who knew me began noticing the change. Some asked why I no longer hosted large New Year's parties as I had in the past. When I shared my story, many fell silent, reflecting, and some even started questioning the customs they had followed without thought. Not everyone was supportive. Some mocked me, saying I was too extreme, but I was undeterred. I remembered God's words, "Your task is to speak the truth. The rest is my work." I realized that my near-death experience was not merely a fortunate survival, but a gift. God had chosen me for a mission, not because I was special, but because He believed that everyone has the potential to bring light to the world. Now, I no longer feared darkness or criticism. I believed that His light, even a small ray, was enough to dispel the thickest darkness, and I knew that with every step I took, He was always by my side. The story I've just shared isn't just about me. In truth, it's about all of us. I am not someone extraordinary, nor am I more perfect than any of you. I am simply someone who once lived by routines and traditions I thought were harmless, until God showed me a different truth. I share this not to judge or criticize anyone, but to invite you to ask questions of yourself. What do you do each day? Do the traditions you follow each year truly reflect the meaning you believe they do? You may not have answers right away, and that's okay. but I hope my story will be the beginning of your journey to find those answers. If this story has made you think, I encourage you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, are the things I'm doing truly coming from the light? Do the traditions I follow bring me closer to God, or do they pull me further away? You don't need to change everything at once. Start by seeking the truth. I urge you to read the Bible, especially the parts about the holy days God has ordained. Pray and listen to His voice. He never hides the truth from those who sincerely seek Him. If you're unsure where to begin, reach out to faith communities or individuals you trust, or simply sit quietly and let your soul converse with God. He always listens, no matter how small your prayer may be. I want you to know one thing: no one has wandered so far that God cannot call them back. No matter how you've lived, whether you've strayed unintentionally or knowingly, He is always there with open arms and a heart full of love. God does not want to judge or condemn you. He wants you to realize that there is always a way back, a path to truth, light, and the love He has for you. If this story touches you, I invite you to share it with your loved ones. Not to argue or prove anything, but to spark a conversation, to seek together what truly matters. I believe God's light can illuminate every heart, no matter how long it has been in darkness. So don't hesitate to step forward. God is waiting for you. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my story. If you have any thoughts, questions, or would like to share your own experiences, I invite you to leave a comment. I look forward to connecting with you and learning from you. May your journey be filled with light and hope. God is always with you, and I believe you will find your way. Remember, everything can change, and every change begins with the truth.